Well, hello and welcome to today's episode of our ongoing interview series, Behind the Scenes. And today we're talking about using threat intelligence to strengthen security awareness. And this is kind of a continuation of a conversation we had on a recent web conference here at SecureWorld. Now, my name is Bruce Sussman. I'll be moderating the conversation today. I'm Director of Content here at SecureWorld, and I'm very excited to have our panelists with us today. Sherrod DeGrippo is Senior Director of Threat Research and Detection at Proofpoint, and Robert Shields is here, who is CISSP Product Marketing Manager for Proofpoint. So great to have both of you with us today, and I want to dive in, kind of go a little deeper than we were on the web conference. And one of the things, Sherrod, that you had brought up on the recent webinar was examples of current threats that we're facing now: COVID, Remcos, NEMT, and Avedon. Will you give us a few details or bullet points on each of these for those who were not part of our previous conversation?
Sure. So for COVID, that's kind of all the reality that we're living in today, which is why we're doing so many webinars and virtual events and virtual meetings. So what we're seeing there is just, the threat actors are leveraging the concept of COVID-19, the pandemic. It's on everyone's mind. And they're using that for social engineering. So they're essentially using the pretense of something around COVID-19 to get people to click. Now, Remcos, NEMT, and Avedon are all types of malware. Remcos is a remote access Trojan, which can give a threat actor complete access to your entire computer from a remote location. So they would be able to completely control the computer, see everything, do everything that a user could do locally. And then NEMT and Avedon are both types of ransomware that have come up in the past several months. And the reason I brought them up in our original conversation is because they both are leveraging some pretty interesting branding and logos and illustrations. NEMT is leveraging the popular cartoon characters Rick and Morty, and Avedon is based all around a sort of wizard concept and is leveraging some caricatures of beloved Harry Potter characters, Hagrid, Sirius Black, and Dumbledore. So I thought those were interesting to bring up.
Well, those are very interesting, and you just wonder, like, how low will they go? Now they're using Harry Potter. This is terrible. All right,
it's terrible. It's terrible.
Very interesting. Okay, great. So as you look at all of these concerns and these examples of threats, Sherrod, if you had to say one of these causes you the most concern, what would it be and why?
So I think that it really is the malware side of things, which we look at all the time. And each of those that I mentioned, Remcos, NEMT, and Avedon, all have the ability to be delivered, as well as many other payloads, via downloader. So I think really it's the downloaders that are the biggest concern right now from the malware perspective, because they're able to morph and change and be flexible in what those next stage payloads are. Is it going to be ransomware? Is it going to be a rat? Is it going to be a keylogger or a coin miner? It could be any of these different things, because the threat actor can then make intelligent choices. So it's really the downloaders, which encompasses a lot of those things.
Okay, yeah, a lot of risk from that. Okay, excellent, that's great. What about the life cycle of these threats? This is something that is often kind of comes up in hallway conversations at SecureWorld conferences back in the old days when we actually had them, right, in person. Do you think these threats, do they go away just kind of on their own, or do they become obsolete because of, the defenses we deploy, or what is the life cycle like?
Well, for some, it's very short. They're here and gone. I think, a couple of years ago, some of the little cottage industry ransomwares that we would see pop up for a couple of weeks and then disappear were really short-lived. But something like Dridex or Ursnif, those have been around for 5-6 years, maybe even longer. But we've been tracking them for 5 or 6 years, and we see them today. So a lot of the threat actors are sophisticated. They pay attention. A lot of them keep metrics on how successful they are. So the threat actors that really are committed, this is their career, they're professionals, they keep up with the landscape. They work on their evasion techniques every day. Countermeasures for some don't really stop them. It depends on what that environment is. And as long as they continue to have good success, they'll keep updating their code, getting better and better, and keep it going. The smaller actors, they come and go, but some of those big juggernauts, TA505, Emotet, they stick around for years and years because it's working.
Mm-hmm. And so are you seeing with those big players, those long-term players, we put up the defenses and then they evolve to get around the defenses, and then we put up the defenses, that cat and mouse? Is that kind of what plays out?
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of people don't realize, from my point of view, that plays out hour by hour. So we'll actually see, payloads that execute during the day in the morning. By the afternoon, they've implemented evasion techniques that, we're seeing the evasion, but we now have to do some changes in our detection capability to make them work again.
Wow, that is an amazing short-term change. So that shows you how advanced they are and how sophisticated. Okay, next question for you. Sherrod, do you have any predictions on emerging threats? Because here we go, we're in the home stretch of the election season, thankfully, right, for most of us. And then holiday shopping is right around the corner, and we know that's going to be largely online. So what are you thinking about emerging threats here?
That's a good question. So, with COVID-19, I think that COVID-19 likely is going to be around, unfortunately, for quite a while, at least as a social engineering war. Even post-vaccine, I predict that we will be seeing things related to COVID-19 for quite a while. In terms of election, we absolutely have evidence that there continues to be election interference, the same that there was in previous elections. That's all over the news. It continues to come up in the security community. That's certainly something that is a threat. Leveraging social engineering combined with the election is also a threat. So not necessarily a threat to our ability to vote safely, securely, but threats to voters, scaring them into clicking on something that they think might be a ballot or that they think might be an ability to register to vote, but it actually is malware. Holiday shopping season, I'll tell you something that a lot of people in the threat intelligence community live and die by, and that's that we actually see a decrease in threat activity around the holidays, which means that those threat actors are taking their vacations as well. And the main reason for that is that their targets are not at their desks to open those emails, click those links, download that malware, and so they tend to reduce their sending volumes. We will see social engineering wars around holiday season, deals for sure, Black Friday, absolutely. But around the actual holidays, that end of year period with the holidays going through the beginning of the new year before people get back heavily into work, the volumes actually go down. So we can take a little bit of a vacation.
Wow, that's crazy. Sherrod, I did not see that one coming, that I guess the hackers and cyber criminals, they need vacations too. Thank goodness. I'd like to send them on a long-term vacation if we could. So, okay, that's very fascinating. Okay, great analysis. Really appreciate all that. Now, Robert, I want to shift to you for the next couple of questions. First of all, when we had our previous conversation, you were giving us some examples of behavior change that indicates an organization's security awareness training is paying off, that a culture of security is emerging. What are you seeing in this space? What are signs that we can look for within our organizations around this type of question?
That's a great question. And I typically break that down into what users are more likely to do and what they're less likely to do. And so if you look at it from, what are they more likely to do? One, they're going to look at their emails more judiciously, and they're going to report what they believe are suspicious emails, or phishes, as we call them. So they're more likely to recognize these social engineering attacks and report them. They're going to feel empowered. If they see something suspicious around the organization, they'll see something, they'll say something. They're going to be less likely to fall for traps such as somebody calling them on the phone or sending them an email. Oh my goodness, the CEO needs you to process this payment immediately. So they're more likely to validate that request, okay? They're going to lock their computers. I mean, there's some easy things that you can see. They're going to lock their computers. They're not going to share passwords or post passwords on their computer screens, which you'll see in many organizations. And they won't do the thing that I see all the time, which is, tailgating, at the entrances, at the secure entrances. You won't see that happening. And so what are they less likely to do? Well, as indicated in what they're more likely to do in reporting, suspicious emails, they're less likely to click on links in emails that may contain some type of malicious link. They're more likely, they're less likely to fall for social engineering attacks in social media, such as in texting. They're less likely to provide information via the phone, and they're less likely to go out and surf the web and download software that could really threaten the organization. So there's things they're more likely to do, and they're less likely to do.
Mm-hmm. And I like the way you did the more and the less contrast there. And we see both things going in the right direction as that culture emerges. So that's really good. I want to ask about ownership, right? Because this is something that often comes up in conversation. Who owns security awareness training in most organizations? Does it belong to HR? Does it belong to security? Does it belong to legal? What are you seeing as far as ownership goes?
Very interesting question. We did some recent research on that very topic. And if you go and look at, what are the requirements for specific roles within organizations? And I'm going to focus on two roles, the Chief Information Security Officer and the Chief Privacy Officer. And if you look at their job descriptions that are out on the market today, you will see in 99% of the cases, there are specific duties that are called out for each one of those roles. And what you'll see for the Chief Information Security Officer is security awareness training. Improve, measure, manage, execute the program so that the organization can meet its goals. And it's usually, it has the security context to it. For the Chief Privacy Officer, the same thing, except with the privacy context, to make sure that users are aware of their obligations and responsibilities based on privacy laws. So those two roles typically own that and are responsible for ensuring that the organization is doing what it should do to meet its regulatory requirements and to make sure that they protect the privacy and the security of intellectual property, customer information.
Mm-hmm. Interesting way, too, that you went about kind of seeing who owns that by looking at those job listings. That's a fantastic approach. That's great. Okay, so, Robert, if you had some closing things that you'd like to leave us with today, leave the audience with, what would you say on today's topic?
Well, we have a big opportunity coming up in October. It's the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month that has been going on for the last 17 years. Started in 2004. Each year, Proofpoint has sponsored that event, and we've made kits available for our customers to download and use these kits. Now, of course, supporting a national, cybersecurity awareness month always sounds good. But I've had direct feedback from numerous CISOs that this has been seminal for their program. It's been a seminal moment when they've launched these programs. They've showed the executive support. They've educated their users on why this is so important and why the users have such a critical role in ensuring that their organization stays safe and stays compliant. So a big opportunity for organizations in the next 30 days here to take advantage of the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great insight. And Robert, do you think this is just because it's more top of mind, or what's the reason, do you think, that this could be a magical time, right, to really get things off the ground or mature them?
Well, I think as the years have gone on, I think organizations have spent a tremendous amount of time and money investing in their security, infrastructure, hardening their applications, hardening their data, hardening their networks. And they realize that has paid benefits. But they also realize that the hackers understand that, and they're just going to go around that, and they're going after the people. And I think, in general, there's been enough coverage and awareness in the market that, almost all organizations understand that and recognize it, and they're acting on it, but users are too. They've heard it enough, and they're now ready to take action.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Robert. All right, Sherrod, what would you leave our audience with today as far as some closing thoughts?
Well, I think that a lot of times the traditional advice stands, which is just be really careful about the things that you get into your email, into your environment, pay attention to what you're clicking on, and just following those security hygiene practices that we all talk about that are so foundational. They're not always easy. I know that. They require work. But I do think that starting at that place can make a really, really big difference really quickly. The basics are a force multiplier.
Yes, yes. Positivity is a force multiplier, and the basics in security, right? Also a force multiplier. That's very, very good. All right. Well, fantastic. Sherrod DeGrippo and Robert Shields of Proofpoint, thanks to both of you for taking us behind the scenes and diving just a little deeper on our topic. Appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Bruce. Good to see you, Robert.
Yeah, it's nice to see everybody, right? Even if you work for the same organization, we're all seeing each other remotely now. And yeah, thank you so much for being with us today. Keep an eye out for more of our behind the scenes interview series as we continue to do that. And thanks, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.